Welcome once again to Cinemaholics from the Internet, California. I am John Negroni. I'm a film critic guy. Who cares? With me is, of course, Will Ashton. Will Ashton.
What up? We're not even reviewing a musical this time around. I don't know why you're singing.
No, there's always a reason to sing when I got you on the other line. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about the new films Hamnet. Oh my gosh. Hamnet. Hamnet.
Well, there is.
Yeah, there is something called Hamlet. You're right.
Yeah, there's like a British. There's a British film because it came out. I don't think it actually came out in the U.S. at least. I don't know if it came out in the UK, but it was in the film festival circuit this year, the same time as Hamnet. So I'm very curious if like anybody that was going to these festivals, like somebody who was expecting the British. I mean, they both have British actors, so it's like
Irish actors, sir.
Okay, well,
Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley. That is a terrible thing to say about Irish actors. They get mad.
That's true. I thought
I knew Jessie for you this time.
Well, I mean, Joe Alwyn is Irish, or he's British, right?
I'm actually not sure. Paul Mescal is Irish for sure.
Okay.
Jessie Buckley, I'm pretty sure is Irish, but
you're probably
she was in Wild Rose. But I'm actually going to look it up because now I'm doubting myself, and I don't want to. Yeah, Irish. I should have trusted my gut. I should have been more comfortable in my skin.
I for some reason thought Paul Mescal was British, but I guess you're right.
If only you would watch normal people like all of us weirdos. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about Hamnet, and we're also going to talk about Rental Family, which is not as new. That came out in limited, I think, back in October. But more people are starting to see it. We are still in the throes of awards season. We have some bigger things coming out later in December. Lots of things on our list. Normally, this is the part of the show where we would maybe do a little bit of film roulette, which is our game where we kind of go through a bunch of movies and do quick little one-sentence reactions that turn into paragraphs. But we wanted to do something a bit different this week, actually, and that is talk about the life and career of Rob Reiner. So if you haven't heard the news yet, Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, unfortunately, were actually murdered 2 nights ago from when we're recording this. We're recording this on Tuesday, December 6th. And a lot of the details and the circumstances still aren't known, but we're not really here to talk about that. So that's not really our bag. But, this is definitely one of those filmmakers who I especially want to honor and take some time to talk about what he meant to just Hollywood in general. And I mean, there's so much to go over. I wrote up a little bit of something to kind of just like a quick summation, which to be clear, I mean, the man, it's hard to sum up a life. It's hard to sum up a person. But I really think it'd be really helpful for our listeners who maybe some of you are, of course, aware of him and some of his films, but I really want to make sure we help illustrate or maybe educate some folks, especially some of our younger listeners, maybe, or maybe a reminder to our older listeners what difference this person made and some of the highlights of what he contributed to cinema, right? So I'm going to go through it now, and Will, feel free to interrupt me if you want to get your words in, because I'm going to try to do this quickly and succinctly. But yeah, he was born March 6, 1947 in the Bronx in New York City. He was born into show business as the son of comedy legend Carl Reiner. He began his career in front of the camera as an actor. He made his television debut when he was just 14 years old. He appeared in a bunch of roles throughout the 1960s on shows like Batman, The Andy Griffith Show, Beverly Hillbillies. He got his start as a writer on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour back in 1968. And that's actually where he worked with his writing partner, a young Steve Martin. His breakthrough role came, though, as Michael Meathead Stivic on Norman Lear's groundbreaking sitcom, All in the Family, which ran from 1971 to 1979. He played Archie Bunker's liberal son-in-law, and he embodied the generational and political tensions of 1970s America. The role earned him 2 Emmy Awards, made him a household name. The show was the most watched program in America for 5 consecutive seasons. And then he became a director. In the 1980s, Reiner transitioned himself behind the camera. He embarked on one of the most remarkable directorial runs in Hollywood history. His film spanned multiple genres, which adds to how impressive that feat was. But they shared a common thread. Those films were about an unwavering humanity and belief that our better nature will always prevail. So some of the major films he directed, I'm not going to get to all of them, but there was, of course, this is Spinal Tap, his debut in 1984. This heavy metal mockumentary, it defined the genre. It invented an entire genre, his first time at bat. He also directed The Sure Thing in 1985, right after, then Stand By Me in 1986, which is a coming-of-age classic based on Stephen King's novella. Mm-hmm. He directed did you want to intercut?
Well, I mean, I'll just say that, Spinal Tap, especially rewatching it earlier this year for the sequel, which it's hard to think that's... I guess there's another Spinal Tap related film coming out next year as well, but it is fascinating that his career is going to begin and end with Spinal Tap, the second film. And
I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, it's wild.
And unfortunately, I wasn't particularly fond of the second film, but I will say, as far as that first movie, it's really, if you go back and watch it, especially with all the films that would go on to inspire, particularly, Christopher Guest's own directorial work. Christopher Guest is one of the main actors and writers of the film. I think the thing that really stands out about that movie is that there's a preciseness that's so ingrained into the film that it can be easy to overlook. There's a Penny Baker influence to it. It's sort of lived in, raw, rockumentary aesthetic that, it's so precisely edited and so acutely realized that especially for a first time director like Rob Reiner, it is so, so impressive what he was able to pull off with those actors on a, pretty much improv heavy screenplay and making it all feel so precise to the point where certain rock stars were not in on the joke, I guess, for several years. They didn't really understand the intent of the film because it kind of felt almost close enough to reality. And so, yeah, that movie is a treasure. And unfortunately, I haven't seen The Sure Thing, but Stand By Me, I think, is right up there with, The Shining and, Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile. Both of those Castle Rock productions we'll talk about a little bit. But
we'll get to that.
Some of the best, if not the best, Stephen King adaptations out there for sure.
And hey, right after Stand By Me, he directed The Princess Bride in 1987. And one of my favorite movies of all time. As many listeners know, this is my favorite genre. Swashbuckling fantasy adventure. It's a beloved fairy tale movie. It became a cult classic that just cracked open pop culture, and people know that movie inside and out even today. And then right after that, as if he wasn't done, right? He did When Harry Met Sally in 1989. And similar to Spinal Tap, this just kind of reinvigorated an entire genre. In this case, it was the romantic comedy, but he created a new gold standard for it, specifically when it comes to gender roles. Adding the feminine perspective, and bringing it to the forefront of these kinds of movies with Nora Ephron as the writer. It's a truly monumental movie just in that regard.
You're a fan? It's one of the best rom-coms ever made. It's plain simply, it's a perfect balance of Ephron and Reiner's talents, and then just having that pure will they won't they chemistry between Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. And I don't know. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably from him. It'd probably be either Stand By Me or When Harry Met Sally, as much as I like Spinal Tap. But and we'll talk about it more obviously when you continue to go down his filmography, but just knowing what he was able to accomplish in terms of balancing different genres and styles and tones, but kind of cracking it each time it's an unimpeachable run for the first half of his career.
Seriously. Yeah. Princess Bride is my favorite, but When Harry Met Sally is right next to it. My second favorite. So I'm right there with you. Next, he did Misery, which also a fantastic movie in 1990. This was another Stephen King adaptation. Kathy Bates won an Oscar for Best Actress thanks to this film. And then he did A Few Good Men in 1992. This was famously, one of Aaron Sorkin's first screenplays. It was nominated for Best Picture. Great Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson film, of course. Another one that people still quote today. He directed The American President, again, working with Aaron Sorkin. And this is the one that would kind of go on to inspire The West Wing which Reiner wouldn't be part of course, but another big hit. I skipped over North, but I will say North in 1994, while a total flop and a critical failure, the film is still broke through pop culture noise by being one of the most infamous Siskel and Ebert reviews ever.
Reviews, yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, at least one of the most, I mean, probably the most infamous Ebert review. I don't even know if Siskel's was as notable.
I don't think Siskel was as spicy, but he wasn't going to. Things went south, is what we're trying to say with that review.
Yeah, I mean, it is, infamous at least. I've never seen it, but
I did it was on TV back in the day, and I remember being like, "This is the kid from Lord of the Rings," because it was like around that time when I saw it, and
I mean, the only thing I really know about it is just it has Bruce Willis in the bunny suit. That's the only thing I really knew about the film, other than the poster. It's just a misfire, I guess. I don't really know much about it.
It's a weirdly structured film. I don't remember it super well, but I do remember, something about the way the film. It just, I mean, a lot of it didn't make sense.
And I think that's, it's gonna sound maybe not like the compliment I'm intending here, but I think it is kind of a credit to how great of a director he was at that time. That if he's gonna swing out, he has to be big. Like, that's like kind of how it goes with these.
Sure.
Directors of a certain stature. It's like they don't just like, hit, a foul ball and walk the first base. It's like, a total whiff, but in a spectacular fashion, like fall down on your face whiff, I guess, if it's as bad as people say it is.
Now, the last major film he directed, just in terms of a film that, really broke through pop culture, would be The Bucket List in 2007, which, obviously popularized the idea of a bucket list. That was something that not a lot of people really had a word for up until that point. And the film did well. This is of course, Jack Nicholson, Morgan Freeman film. Now, in 1987, going back a little bit, that's when he founded or co-founded Castle Rock Entertainment with Martin Schaefer, Andrew Scheinman, Glenn Padnick, and Alan Horn. It was named, of course, after the fictional Maine town in Stand By Me, plus other Stephen King stories, of course.
And
the whole connectivity.
And it originated from Lord of the Flies, right?
I
thought Castle Rock was inspired by. I could be wrong on that.
Pretty sure it's the name of the town.
Well, it is. Yes, I mean.
Oh, you think it was as a reference to Lord of the Flies?
I thought it was.
I'm not sure about that. You could be right.
But yeah, Castle Rock, Derry, Derry, all those different towns that frequent the Stephen King novels. That you are correct about that.
Yeah, and I mean it was an extremely successful company. It embodied in a lot of ways Reiner's vision of creative freedom. He said it was like a safe harbor, hence the name, where filmmakers could work with more autonomy than the major studios typically allowed. And there you go. Castle Rock produced many of Reiner's own films and became one of the most successful production companies of the 1990s. It brought audiences The Shawshank Redemption, as you mentioned earlier, and Green Mile, and the TV phenomenon Seinfeld. If not for Castle Rock, we wouldn't have the Seinfeld Chronicles, which would become Seinfeld.
Yeah, I just from watching so much Seinfeld growing up, I feel like the Castle Rock logo is like the Gracie Films. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like those two logos, I just instantly feel comfortable. Like when I see Gracie Films or when I see Castle Rock, I just feel like I'm in a blanket warming up to watch, something cozy and well produced. So, and obviously, not all the films that would go on to be under Castle Rock's banner was, of that caliber, but I think it still always carried that sort of comfort for me, that sort of like hominess that was a credit to Reiner and what he was able to build from his career.
In terms of awards and recognition, he won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. And that was, of course, for All in the Family in 74 and 78. He got an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture as producer of A Few Good Men in 1993. He got 4 Golden Globe nominations for Best Director, 3 Directors Guild of America Award nominations, the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation, that would be The Princess Bride. He got his Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 1999, and he won the Chaplin Award from the Film at Lincoln Center in 2014. He has 3 films in the National Film Registry. I wonder if you can guess what they are. You already know what they are?
I mean, is it Spinal Tap, When Harry Met Sally, and Princess Bride?
Close, because yes, that's exactly what it was.
Okay, I just figured.
This is Spinal Tap, Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally.
I mean, as much as I love Stand By Me, I feel like those are the three, you know, that defined their genre or defined their genre by expanding upon it and like kind of
Yeah.
inspiring films of their ilk to come.
And he was also one of Hollywood's most prominent liberal activists. He channeled a lot of his passion for social justice into a lot of meaningful causes. For early childhood education, he successfully advocated for California's Proposition 10 in 1998, and that funded childhood programs through tobacco taxes. And his wife, Michelle, he co founded with her the Parents Action for Children. I mean, billions of dollars, went to kids in my state in California. So we owe quite a debt to him for pushing that. And in addition to that, he did a lot for marriage equality because he
Yeah.
was a key player in overturning California's Proposition 8 through the American Foundation for Equal Rights. He once said, I am unbelievably proud to be part of this. I couldn't have imagined that I would ever be involved in anything as historically significant as this in my life. And in terms of, oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, I always just like, I mean, the big thing about these tributes is I'm like, I always figured he was like a good guy, but it's just like,
He's the Hollywood good guy.
right, yeah, he was just
Everybody
like,
loved him. He was a nice guy.
right,
Even people who
and
disagreed with him politically, just
yeah,
he worked with like James Woods. Like, he was just one of those like affable human beings.
yeah, and I think that's just what makes this whole thing so like unbelievable. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible if it happened to anybody really, but like the fact
Yeah.
that it happened to someone of such esteem as Rob Reiner,
And his wife as well.
and his wife, of course, yeah.
Which, next I did want to talk a bit about his personal life because his personal experiences deeply informed his work. He really struggled to find love after his divorce from Penny Marshall. And in fact, his divorce is what directly inspired When Harry Met Sally. That was originally written, spoiler alert, with an ending where the characters don't end up together. But when he met Michelle Singer on the set of that film, he actually rewrote the ending to the happy conclusion that audiences know today. And so he said about the film, as you go along, the relationship becomes better and better because you really become best friends. She has helped raise me. He said that after 36 years of marriage to her. And he was, of course, close friends with Billy Crystal, who starred in When Harry Met Sally, as you said, but also Richard Dreyfuss, who was one of his high school friends, directed him, of course, in Stand By Me. And I mean, like we were saying, I mean, he was friends with everybody in Hollywood. I mean, people loved him. He was on New Girl. He just immediately fit into that cast because he had so many connections with everybody there. Jamie Lee Curtis, famously, and Zooey Deschanel, and you already mentioned he was friends with Christopher Guest, but also Michael McKean and Harry Shearer, from Spinal Tap. That their friendship after doing that film together lasted for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, his turn in Wolf of Wall Street is so good.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It's so
great.
funny.
One of his best cameos.
I mean, what's the sitcom that he's watching when he's like arguing with his wife and that, like his intro to his like character?
Is it Family Guy or is it?
No,
I'm thinking of someone else.
It was like $6 Million Man or something. I forget exactly but it's just so, I don't want to spoil anything if anyone hasn't watched it, but he's such a delight. And that movie's already fantastic as it is, but he's just so funny. He steals a number of scenes in that film. It's just a credit to him. And it just felt like so refreshing at that time. Cause I mean, I don't know, I guess New Girl would have been probably after that or maybe around the same time, but
that was like 2013. So it was like the same year.
Okay.
Yeah. He was watching The Equalizer. I looked it up.
Equalizer. That's it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like, it was like a refreshing and invigorating to see him, in his element again. Obviously his directorial work was a lot more hit and miss at that time. So just seeing him, in this great film from this acclaimed director, just kind of proving his stuff. It was just so fun to see him.
I believe his last on-screen performance was in this Spinal Tap 2, reprising the role of Marty, the guy, filming the documentary, of course. In terms of his legacy, when he was asked which film he wanted to be remembered for, he always answered Stand By Me. He said, it's the one that meant the most to me because it really is an extension of my personality and my sensibility. It has a mixture of humor and melancholy and emotion, and it's something that is closest to me of all the films I've done. His filmography has been compared to that of Ron Howard and Steven Spielberg. I've seen a lot of people sharing all kinds of filmmakers, but those are the two I see the most. And I definitely agree, specifically for producing a string of films that have truly endured, as audience favorites, just across generations. Like people will say, like, well, Francis Ford Coppola had a great run, with Godfather Conversation, Godfather 2, but it's different in the sense that like those movies, like Godfather and Godfather 2, yes, but like a lot of it's also Francis Ford Coppola films aren't quite as like culturally enduring. And a lot of people don't
Oh.
watch like the conversation outside of like these days. Like
Uh,
compared to like,
I'm not gonna agree with you on this one, but
come on,
yeah.
compared to like When Harry Met Sally and Princess
I
Bride and
mean,
Few
the
Good Men, and
conversation remains as relevant today as it did then, but
I think for a lot of people, but I don't think it's on the same level. Like
in any case, I get what you're saying. I don't think that's the best example to give, but I will say, and I'm gonna probably be paraphrasing a little bit of what our friend Corey Woodruff wrote because he had a really lovely tribute on For the Win. But I think that and this really ties into Stand By Me. I think is that like as far as like a visual filmmaker, it's not that his style was especially distinctive. It wasn't like he was especially known for his style. But I think to your credit and why I think he's applicable to Spielberg and Ron Howard and such is that he had that sort of like all American earnest sensibility that really I think resonated with audiences.
Linklater
At
is
least
another,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was I think with Stand By Me in particular, I think I should have clarified earlier, like I think The Shining might be the best film from a Stephen King book, but obviously that's not a great King adaptation. But as far as like Stand By Me and then him as a producer working on the Darabont films, like with the Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption, he does capture that sort of like, you know, earnest sensibility that could very easily be mawkish or corny in the way that I think the best King books or King material kind of avoids by being really heartfelt and sincere, at least as far as like the non-horror stuff goes, like The Body and Shawshank Redemption, those novellas, just clearly capturing that sort of like essence of Americana that it really resonates, I think, in a way that's nostalgic, but doesn't feel, entirely, like I said, mawkish or overly sentimental. It just really feels big hearted and sincere in a way that just continues to speak to generation after generation, hopefully, generation and generation to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if there's a hallmark that does unify his work, all of them, even though they are so different and disparate from each other, it's that to me they all have this unwavering humanity, that reflects him. He had this belief that, our better nature will always prevail. And that comes through all of his movies, that kind of idealism. And a lot of people will sniff at that, but I think that it is so sincere and earnest. Like, even if you disagree with that on a certain level, you can't help but admire, that he was just that kind of guy that believed that and wanted to make that part of his art. I found this quote from him I really liked that I hadn't heard before, where he said, "All the films I've done have some kind of personal connection with something that I've been through. If you're working from someplace honest, you're always going to tap into your experience." I liked that. And that's something I believed for a long time about where art comes from. You and I have talked about it endlessly, like on Mad Men, because that's a show so much about the writers and finding that part of yourself to put into your creativity that actually resonates with someone. That kind of invisible thing. Like how do you evoke a feeling from someone? And I think that's just something Reiner was clearly able to do because his films were so lasting and they were so influential and they were water cooler conversations. And he didn't just kind of dissolve into the background after this big sitcom success. He was a nepo baby, right? But he obviously forged his own path, and people know Rob Reiner more readily than they do Carl Reiner, in terms of today. And yeah, he lived a heck of a life. I wish we could have had him a lot longer, whether he made more stuff or not. Yeah, it's sad, it's tragic, and that's about all I have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the work, the best of it will, you know, stand with us, and I think will continue to resonate, continue to
He'll
inspire
stand by
people.
us.
Stand by us, yes. Yeah, I mean, again, it just like, just knowing that humanism that you're talking about is just Yeah, I mean, it was going to be sad when he passed no matter what, just because the legacy he left was so lived in and sincere that it was going to, feel like an absence when he was gone. But just knowing such a tragic circumstance, like you said, the fact that he always felt like there was a better person, a better sense of self, a better America or whatever to be had. And then just these circumstances, which are, continue to evolve as we talk about this. And there's, I don't want to
Yeah, we're
speculate.
purposely holding back from all
I
of that
mean,
since
there's been
we,
a lot of lapsed journalism ethics, I think, as far as like the reporting of this whole
yeah,
thing. Obviously, the
people,
publication.
TMZ, they've been kind
Yeah.
of
Well,
taking certain
TMZ is going to
liberties.
TMZ, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
even by their standards, this is callous, I
Yeah.
think. And it just makes me like if you could imagine, like if the Sharon Tate murders happened, I can't even imagine what they'd be like today.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm sure it was bad then, but it'd be like horrendous today, even more
For sure.
so. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just compounds to such a sad situation. But, I mean, I guess the very small positivity here is that it's causing people to really remember and think back to Reiner's triumphs and his successes, like you said. And it could be kind of hard to see that with the misfires they had at the end of his career. But, I think what resonates will always and continue to resonate.
Well said. And I think, hey, look, as we transition into our first review, what better way to honor Rob Reiner than to have a spirited discussion about a couple of movies, and to do it, of course, with our own sort of like, I feel like you and I are pretty nice compared to some other critics out there who can maybe be a little mean. I won't say we're as nice as Rob Reiner. That's probably impossible. You're close. You're a lot closer than I am.
I
You're
don't know about that.
yeah.
I can be pretty mean.
Only to me, and only because
yeah.
I deserve it. But yeah, no, we're going to talk about Hamnet. Very excited to finally get into this film with you. Hamnet is a pretty quietly devastating historical drama. It was directed by Chloé Zhao. She co-wrote this with Maggie O'Farrell because it's adapted from Maggie O'Farrell's novel of the same name. And the film takes a deliberately oblique approach to one of the most famous figures, of course, in literary history, William Shakespeare. But it is not a cradle to quill biopic of Shakespeare. The film actually...
I should say I think you already said it's a novel, but this is not a biopic. I
No.
feel like I've seen some people describe it that way. And like, I mean,
you
I
can't
know
really do a biopic of somebody who we don't know for sure massive elements of his life. Like we don't know a lot.
To the point where people don't even know A, if he actually wrote the stuff that he wrote, or B, if he was even a singular person, if he was like a composite of a theater troupe or whatever. I think more likely than not, the simplest answer is the right one, and that there's probably a guy named William Shakespeare, and I don't know, maybe he got help that wasn't historically recognized, but I don't know. I think the anonymous, the Roland Emmerich movies of the world are always like entertaining fantasies. I don't know if we should really take seriously,
right.
But they're
at
fun.
A certain point when enough time has passed and you don't have that much of a record, it becomes like a fantasy. It becomes like a very loose retelling of a fictionalized version of a person who was real. We know enough about Shakespeare to infer a lot of things, but it's usually a lot of speculation. Funny enough, I was on, Will knows this, but the listeners, I was on NPR, the 1A. I know. But talk
Did you
about
get your
this
tote
film.
bag and your mug and
no, those budget
talk
cuts.
About wait, don't tell me and
it was
American
a lot
Life.
Okay, but it was a lot of fun. I got to talk. Okay, Will Ashton. This is the mean part you were talking about. No, I was on their show, the 1A, which was really fun. They have like a movie club they do. And I bring it up because we've of course had the legendary John Horn on there, which I was sweating bullets because it's John frickin' Horn. But also they had this guy, James Shapiro, who's like an actual Shakespeare expert. And it was actually really cool listening to him talk about a lot of this stuff because, he really knows, he teaches this kind of thing and he knows way more than me. And it's definitely worth listening to just for him. But he wrote something specifically for The Atlantic about Hamlet, Shakespeare, all that stuff. But back to the film itself, as I was saying, so yes, not a biopic. It actually shifts its gaze kind of sideways toward his marriage. So it focuses on his family and most crucially, him and his wife, Agnes Hathaway or Anne Hathaway, and the death of their young son, Hamnet,
Could
which is,
you imagine if they had cast Anne Hathaway for this?
I would have lost my mind. Thankfully, it was Jessie Buckley, just because I think
know.
Jessie Buckley is one of our best actors working, but, and not, no shade at Anne Hathaway, but, you know, she's a certain type of actor who is in certain types of movies that I enjoy. She's busy with Devil Wears Prada too. That's all I'm going to say. But yes, the death of Hamnet is an event widely believed to have informed or at least haunted the writing of Hamlet itself. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the story of Hamlet, and this movie doesn't even get into it, but it's helpful context. Shakespeare technically didn't write it. Chloé Zhao has talked about this, especially, where there's like this confusion of like Hamlet was this completely original. No, the play itself had existed, but Shakespeare did his own version of it. And it's kind of like where Chloé Zhao is doing her own version of Maggie O'Farrell's book, right? Which is its own version of lots of retellings and oral history and things that have to do. We do this all the time. And I think sometimes there can be a little bit of like, Shakespeare was, you know, multiple people and what's original, who wrote what, who was the author on, but human beings do this. We tell new stories about old stories.
I mean, it did remind me of, you know, unfortunately when Maverick Hines left the show.
And saddest day of my life.
And then maybe a year or so later, you come back with a story you wrote called Malek.
Yeah. Iceman.
And it talked, yeah. And it was kind of sort of about a guy who left a podcast, and, you know, I could see
a fisherman.
Right, yeah, you go be a fisherman or whatever. And
for the listeners who don't know, Maverick Hines actually did move to like another state and became like a fisherman. He runs like a bait shop. Like he is living his best ever life. So just we're clear.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was very similar to when you wrote that story.
There you go.
Yeah. Maverick.
Mavericks.
No, Mallory. It has to be an L because it's instead of Hamnet, it's Hamlet. So it's like,
but it's Maverick. So it's like anyway.
Laverick? Does that
Mavnik?
work? I don't know. Anyway,
Mavlik. Something about it doesn't stick, but to me at least. Anyway, so as we mentioned before, Jessie Buckley plays Agnes, Shakespeare's wife, although it was renamed to Agnes to avoid modern confusion, but it's really Anne Hathaway. And we meet her, again, this is all super fictional. We know next to nothing about these people, like specifically Shakespeare's wife and his kids. Like we know dates of like we know like when Hamnet was born, for example. We know when he died. We don't know anything else. We don't know hardly anything about Anne Hathaway. So it's a reimagining, if you will. Here we see she's this woman who is deeply attuned to the natural world. That's how the movie starts. Paul Mescal plays Shakespeare himself, but he really exists more at the margins of the story. He plays a husband and father who is kind of pulled between his home in the countryside, but then also his work at the theater, which we don't see much of because the movie's not really about Shakespeare. Shakespeare's just kind of the set dressing, because really it's a movie about things like intimacy and ambition. Zhao kind of structures the film less as kind of like a narrative with like a very strict march. And it's more of like this really long paced out accumulation of like spaced out moments. And we do have some stuff with the structure, like how, you know, the courtship of the two individuals, and then ultimately some of the domestic life, the illness, the loss. And it's all very elemental. Like that is the big thing people take away from this movie. It's atmospheric. The cinematography is grand with grand gestures. And it's also weepy. You know, I haven't seen a movie like this that people are like so like predisposed to sob since maybe Manchester by the Sea. It's been a while. But ultimately, I think Hamnet is ultimately asking the audience, you know, not how great art is made. It's not really doing that. It's more about like, what does it cost to make good art? And in that sense, it's trying to tackle themes of mourning and memory, how personal devastation can echo outward into culture, how we experience things like plays, stories, movies, and how sometimes art becomes like the only language left for people to speak because like ordinary speech fails. Now, A lot of people are hailing this as a masterpiece. A lot of critics are it's like on their list for best of the year and so on. And I liked the film. I was predisposed to like it, or I was really predisposed to love it because I really liked Nomadland and the writer. I didn't like Eternals, but like we didn't hold that against Chloé Zhao. I mean, come on. But regardless, I went into this with like two of my favorite actors, Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley, who I just think are tremendous. I've loved most of the stuff they've been in. You know, Jessie Buckley, I think the only film I thought was a total miss for her was Men, the Alex Garland film. Paul Mescal, like I haven't loved him in everything, but I really liked like After Sun and All of Us Strangers and Normal People, of course, changed my life. But I only just kind of liked this movie. I didn't really get swept up in it. And like even on that NPR panel, I was like the only one. Everybody else was like, I loved it. I was like the kind of lone sort of like, yeah, you know, it just didn't totally work for me all the way. But Will Ashton, I have to bring it to you because I don't know what you think of Hamnet, and I have been wondering this since you told me you watched it. What do you think?
Yeah, mere 4 hours ago.
I have been on pins, needles, and then some.
Yeah. I mean, I went into this certainly hopeful. I really enjoy Chloé Zhao's earlier stuff. Obviously, as you mentioned, I think Eternals was just a misfire. Unfortunately, it was. I think, I think the sad thing about that movie was like it was a lot of the stuff that we wanted to see from Marvel, and it was looking very promising, and it just didn't come together, and it was at times a baffling mess, and it was just really unfortunate. And I figured that she was gonna eventually sort of scale back to something a little bit more refined and hopefully personal. And I think what's kind of fascinating for me about this movie is like I have seen some of the reactions that you're talking about where it's like people were over the moon with it, crying out of the theater, overcome.
And we're going to go
emotions.
through a range, of course, from our friends of the show, but yes.
And I've seen some other people who are more kind of, kind of stuck their nose up and are a little more like, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't surprise anybody that I guess I'm closer to the middle in the sense that
here we go. Ben Sitter Will, Mr. 6 out of 10. Yeah. That's where he lives. To be or not to be, that's not the question because Will won't answer either.
And I have to say, I'll just say this up front. That scene, the to be or not to be scene, terrible. That was horrendous. That was laughable. I had to stifle a laugh. That was like, what are we doing here? That's like going back to the like Hiroshima bombing and Eternals being Brian Tyree Henry. It's like just like a scene that's just like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this?
That actually brings me to a question then, because like I went into the movie not really knowing it was about William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway or Hamlet. Like I just saw the title and I knew who was involved. Watching the film, it was kind of like a surprise to me as it was unfolding. I was like, what's going on here? Who are these people? Because the film's kind of coy about it. I think it's like a ways into it. I don't remember them saying like who he was until like a while in, but I intuited, I was like, oh, this is about Shakespeare and this is about how Hamlet was made. But it wasn't like, I guess it is possible to go into this movie and maybe be a little bit like, what actually is this? Is this like Hamlet, but it's like art house? So they had to change one of the letters?
I don't know. I was never in any doubt that it was.
Well, yeah, you watch trailers and
Hamlet.
You read the trades.
No, not even that. The only thing I thought initially was that Bartholomew, which is Joe Allen's character, initially I thought, oh, he's the Shakespeare and that he's like overseeing this and then he's going to write about it and that's going to help him process. But then when they show...
That'd have been interesting.
When they show Paul Mescal writing, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's Shakespeare. And this is going to be his perspective. I think by that point, they also said that his name was Will. So
yes. Well, and I think like one of the biggest clues early is like that he's a Latin tutor, and you can kind of. But also part of it is he doesn't look like the common sort of like understandings of what Shakespeare might have looked like. We don't really know for sure, but a lot of people sort of like think of him as either the sort of classic Renaissance kind of painting or Shakespeare in Love. I guess I don't know if anybody's doing that, but
I mean, there was that show, I think it was on TNT called Will. That was also kind of made William Shakespeare into like a sex pot.
Wake me when it's about Will Ashton. That's when you're going to get some real Casanova exploits.
Oh man, yeah, that's going to be that's going to have to be on like Cinemax or something. That's going to have to be for the the midnight crowd.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you're more so just in between. I mean, what kind
well,
of would have pushed you to one side or the other then?
I mean, I think for me, like hearing you say about like all these people being so emotionally grasped to the film is fascinating because I felt like I was never fully hooked to it, but I always appreciated the aesthetics, and I felt
Yeah,
like
the craft is there.
cinematography's the craft of it. I think it flows in a very lovely way. I think especially in like the first half, like the way it kind of goes through time, and it's very sort of like graceful and federal, or what's the word, ethereal, it just
Ethereal.
kind of ethereal. And I feel like that stuff is really intriguing. I wasn't like really expecting that. I think that's all like lovely. But for me, I felt like I never really was like that emotionally drawn to it. Maybe because
Same.
I just kind of felt like,
Yeah.
okay, I just know what's going to happen here. But also, I feel like the movie, like you go back to the writer and No Man Land, which I know No Man Land gets a little contested, but I still vouch for it. I think it's quite good. I think both those movies, and I know this is a term that gets overused, but like it has sort of Malikian kind of quality where it's like kind of blending the like narrative dramatics with a sort of like grounded realism. And it feels very lived in and honest. And I feel like this movie feels a lot more of like a production. Like it's a well done production. Like it feels like, it's well acted, sincerely acted. It's an earnest film. But like I just felt like it never felt all that realistic. Even when it was trying to go for like more of a like realistic kind of aesthetic, like there's like a couple of scenes, they're like wide shots and it's just like an unbreaking cut of like Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley acting. Like they're very compelling scenes, but I just didn't really feel like I was like a fly on the wall. It just like felt like I'm watching a well done, well directed production. And so like I just kind of felt like I was always sort of at a distance with the film. Like I just kind of felt like I'm watching a film that's well done, it's well made, but I never was like latched onto it. And I just kind of felt, I don't know, almost sort of alienating by the end. Like I can appreciate the emotion of it, the emotionality that's being committed to the film, but I just didn't really feel like I was like on the verge of tears. Like the person next to me was like weeping, and I was just kind of like, that was a nice movie. Yeah, I was just like, yeah, that's
I
nice.
watched the trailer for this after I saw the film, and I was like, this feels like a totally different movie. It kind of like the trailer makes it seem like it's going to be more Oscar bait, like a little bit more kind of like the sweeping melodrama of it all. But no, it's a moody movie. It's way more grounded, like you're saying, and that's not a bad thing. I'm glad it makes that choice, but it does make me think that it's really just like a few key narrative choices or even editing and pacing choices that I think could have saved this movie for me. Like could have made it like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, like much better than where I ultimately landed with it. I wrote this in my review and I stand by it. I'm curious what you might think though. I said, Hamnet is on paper a great story. It has all the stuff of Shakespeare in practice and theory: forbidden romance, artistic yearning, a child lost too soon, and one of world literature's most mythologized tragedies waiting in the wings. And Zhao approaches it with the sense of spiritual autobiography that she brings to all her work, as it's another tale of wayfarers navigating the void, another portrait of people learning to breathe inside grief without turning to stone. Her touch is reverent and often breathtaking. It's also at times stifling. And I think that stifling nature of it is kind of where I land because like I'm trying to feel something, but I almost feel too boxed in some of the things the movie's telegraphing where I don't feel the freedom to kind of like breathe into characters, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even outside of the Zhao directorial aspect of it, I feel like we've been on the Buckley train since Wild Rose, and I think you so even more than me. Like, I mean, you've been all about Buckley. You love that movie. I think it's quite good as well. But I feel like that movie, it's like that's such a firecracker kind of performance. It feels very raw, lived in, like, and I think she's done some very good work since then. And I think this is a good performance
I
too.
think I'm thinking of
And
Anything as one of your faves from
yeah,
her, right?
that's absolutely it. But I just feel like this performance is like it's effective, I guess, but like it doesn't feel like it captures that quality. Like it just seems like all these like on paper it makes sense to do like, okay, this is like a classic story of literature, but we're gonna take it in, like you said, more of an art house way. It's gonna be more grounded, it's gonna have kind of more almost supernatural elements in it as well, but it's going to have this sort of like visceral quality that, is going to make you kind of feel like what audience back then felt when they experienced Hamlet for the first time or something. And I feel like maybe that's what some people are getting out of this. And then, like you said, I like the idea of exploring how an artist kind of can work through their emotions with their art. I just thought it was like nicely made, a commendable effort, but like I just felt like that emotionality just didn't hit me. It didn't hit me. It didn't quite go past the surface for me.
It sounds like I'm a bigger fan of the Buckley performance in this. I actually think the Buckley performance in this is pretty great. I think it's one of the few things in the film that really worked for me. I think because she is just like inhabiting the character really well. I just think the writing isn't serving her, and it's not really her fault. And I think the reason I really think it stands out is because the Mescal performance doesn't work quite as well for me at all. I think that especially like what he's asked to do here doesn't really suit what he's good at. I feel like he's a bit miscast. Like I don't think he's the right actor for this. I think they tapped him because he usually plays that sort of like sensitive, masculine guy who, just really has like a lot of broodiness, but that doesn't make him unlikable. But I think he needed a little bit more unlikability in certain aspects to make this kind of work. I haven't read the book, so I don't know if it works better in the book, because I like the ideas in this. Like I like what it's doing, but the how of it, like how we go from scene to scene, how long some of these scenes are, like what she chooses us to like dwell on, and what we see from Buckley and like in the house life and like some of the character relationships. I feel like we're either missing things or we're seeing the wrong things sometimes, or we're seeing things in an order. Like if there was a better framing device, I think this movie would work so much better for me. But yeah, I do want to look at some of our friends, what they have to say. But what do you think?
I mean, the only thing I'll just say that we haven't really touched on is like in relationship to Paul Mescal, I think it's fascinating to me because the other Mescal movie this year, or at least one of them, maybe I'm forgetting something, is The History of Sound.
Yeah.
Which is a film that like I feel like I'm sort of topsy-turvy. Like, I feel like now it's a movie where the reviews are all just like, it's very pretty, but like it didn't hit me emotionally. And like Hamnet, I see the reviews and it's like, it's walloping, emotional affair. And I feel like I'm flip-flopped. Like, I feel like this movie, I'm like, it's very pretty. It looks nice, well done. I just don't feel anything emotionally. And History of Sound's the film where I'm like emotionally stirred and broken watching that. And I feel like that movie more effectively kind of captures, like you said, that sort of like incongruous, like, almost sort of like, stony exterior, but like soft interior thing that kind of makes a more complicated sort of romance. And that like when you finally get to like that breaking point, the thing that kind of causes them to crumble, it's more harrowing, I feel like, because it feels more earned and it allows Mescal to really kind of showcase that. And I feel like that's kind of what they're going for here. And there's a nice moment at the end where they kind of capture that, but I just feel like it wasn't as resonant for me. I don't know. And I don't think it's necessarily that he's miscast. I just feel like to me, that's more where the writing falls short, is with the Shakespeare stuff, because that's where it gets into like the kind of corny, like, oh, this is where he gets to be or not to be. This is where he gets the sword fighting thing.
I gotta say,
he tells the brave thing.
My last thing, because we didn't really get to it, the ending works. I think the ending is fantastic. I think it's just that did hit me. It didn't get me weepy or anything like that, but it made me think. It made me think more than anything else. And I just loved being transported to the Globe Theater in that sense. Like I really love how all that stuff is realized. Again, though, it's more of like me appreciating the craft of it and appreciating even the acting that the extras are doing. I think it's so fun. And it's so cool that they cast Noah Jupe to play Hamlet, who's the real life older brother of Jacoby Jupe, who plays Hamnet, which is just kind of like a fun little eeriness there. Yeah,
I didn't know that. I thought it was fascinating that they looked kind of similar. So I mean, I didn't realize that was the case. That's very cool.
You got a reason to be fascinated. Let's take a look at what some of our friends have to say about the film, or at least what they rated it. So, friend of the show, Allison Johnson, and co-founder of In Between Drafts with myself, she gave the film 4 stars. However, Ryan Oliver, friend of the show, gave it 1.5 stars. Let's take a look at what he wrote here. He said, a severe miscalculation on nearly every conceivable level, salvaged only in fleeting moments by Buckley. The concept of channeling grief through art is not a bad one, but the quality of the art should not negate the complexities. to which Hamnet explores only superficially, which leads into that tone-deaf finale that ultimately makes the whole endeavor play out like miserablest saving Mr. Banks. Really hated this. Needless to say, I am not on the same page as Oliver, but I'm not that far compared to some other people, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not negative on the film in the broad sense. Like, I think it's well made. I think it's, perfectly serviceable. But yeah, I feel like I'm not. I don't know. The nut hasn't been cracked for me. Like it's just like I'm still whole.
Yes, you are still in between the B or not the B as in the grade. And then, of course, best friend of the show, Abby Olchesi, our former co-host, she gave the film 4 stars. And hey, Will, there's another co-host of like, maybe we'll be haunted by Abby and we'll write something that would be like, ABBA, But yeah, Abby wrote, I would give anything to see a cut of this movie that has that last scene minus Max Richter. It's powerful enough as it is without the lily gilding. I couldn't agree more. That took me out. I was like, hold on. Like Max Richter, of course, composed the rest of the film. Finished with something original. I think like that's too recognizable of a thing to put here. I don't know if you agreed or not, but you're like, that's the least of the movie's problems.
I'm sorry. What exactly are you
On the
and Abby
Nature of
referred?
Daylight? So at the end of the movie, they play On the Nature of Daylight. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like
You
the
can have it.
nods.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the nods not only to Shakespeare but other art. I don't know. They kind of just felt a little clunky to me. That one less so for me, but I can see why that would affect other people.
Yeah, it bugged me. And then on the flip side, so again, Abby gave it 4 stars, really liked it. Isaac Feldberg, friend of the show, Isaac took one look at this movie and was like, 2 stars. He gave an extra half star that Ryan Oliver just couldn't find. But he wrote, designed in a lab to make you cry and win awards, which I say not to insult the ability of the deeply talented actors and artisans involved, but to call attention to a certain fault in the foundation of it, which is the distance between witnessing such grueling exertion and feeling truly connected to the emotional experience that's been depicted so forcefully. So I'm going to skip to the end. He wrote a long thing here, but I'm going to just get you to the last part. He said, there's something pathetic, indulgent, and not entirely honest about it. Perhaps it's the innate silliness of the premise, or the histrionics the actors are directed to, but everything's too overbearing and effective for the audience to experience much meaningful catharsis beyond some involuntary wrenched tears. I just think it's interesting that we're not seeing a lot of 3 stars. We're seeing like 4 stars, 4 stars, 1.5, 2.
Right.
And Will Ashton's the like 2.5, 3-star guy over here.
I'm 3. I would say I'm 3 out of 5. It's like a classic, just like it's pretty good.
That's about right.
It's fine. I didn't like dislike it. I just kind of felt like I got what I needed out of it. I felt like some of it was a little dull, but like overall I was engaged with it, and I kind of like, I don't know. I don't think it's more than what it appears to be at times. Like I feel like it's not a particularly rich text, but I think it's substantial and I think it's well made.
Friend of the show, Clinton Worthington, my former editor at The Spool, he wrote, Shakespeare in Mourning. Zhao channels her dirt-soaked naturalism into a kind of Robert Eggersian take on Will Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway's early life, the death of their son Hamnet, and the apocryphal claim that Hamlet was a way for the bard to channel his grief, the loss, into his art. He wrote a lot more. He did say at the end here, and yes, I know On the Nature of Daylight is so overused at this point, apparently not even what Richter intended to have there. Zhao just loved the piece too much. But F it. On the couch with my in-laws, also deep in my own form of extended grief that I daren't show for fear of harshening the vibe, that ending hit me like a ton of bricks. I wouldn't compare this to Robert Eggers. I think that's not something I jive with.
My brow furrowed a little when I heard that comparison. I was like, I don't quite get that one. I like Clint a lot, but yeah, I'm like, I don't know about that one, Chief.
Yeah, we don't always agree. I probably agree with Clint more than you do. I did think one of the comments on this was really funny to me. Somebody said, thank you for getting it and being appropriately moved. It's like, easy, buddy. Wow. Like Mr. Commenter over here. It was your brother, by the way. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. It was a guy named Nate, so that's why I thought to make that joke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know where this brother slander
The
was coming from.
slander. Friend of the show, best friend of the show, Kimber Myers, excuse me, gave the film 4 stars and a heart. But no review here. Friend of the show, Aaron Dicer, gave it 4 stars as well. He did write a quick review. He said, "This was fine through most of it, but the finish that knocked a full star more out of me. I can't get Buckley out of my head. She's transcendent." I wish the ending had pushed it that far for me. Because, yeah, I'm like 3 stars probably. The ending keeps it at 3. I think I might have been 2.5 if it was not for the ending, maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't feel like the ending was like that impactful. I just kind of felt like it stayed at that, like, you know, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We're back to this. That's pretty good.
Alex Billington, friend of the show, gave it 4 stars and a heart. He writes a lot of the same stuff we've already talked about. He did say everything that happens in the Globe Theater at the end is truly phenomenal, awe-inspiring, magical cinema. It's most wonderful. But yeah, kind of saying the same thing of like the ending kind of, really pushed it for him. Let's see who else though. Let's see here. Friend of the show, Kristen Lopez, gave it 4 stars, no review. Chris Evangelista, friend of the show, gave it a heart and 4 stars.
Wow.
And Chris said, well, he made like a little bit of joke that reading it wouldn't really work, but he did say, "But seriously, folks, I had heard how devastating this was, but I was actually doing fine and thought maybe I'm dead inside." And the final scene happened and I felt like sobbing. So yeah, he's on that train as well. And then
Go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
you're good.
Something good. I feel like people haven't brought up that I feel like I really liked about the movie was Emily Watson's performance. I thought she was really good in this, and I thought her scene with the candle, where like she's kind of talking about her past losses, was like,
yeah,
I don't know. I felt like more affected by that than a lot of the other scenes.
I felt like she had more of an arc than Shakespeare. I feel like Shakespeare was like the same register throughout the movie.
Sure.
With her, I can track like character change that makes sense.
Sure. She went from calling Buckley a wench to being like, I don't know, maybe there's something here.
Yeah, maybe there's something going on with this lady. She's all right. She watched her in Chernobyl and was like, ugh. And then, by the time she gets to Wild Rose, she's like
Last Daughter. She's like, okay, I could see it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And then she sees the trailer for The Bride. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be coming out pretty soon. I think they filmed Hamnet after The Bride, and I think she did this back to back. Can't even imagine. Anyway, Amanda the Jedi, friend of the show, gave it a heart and said, "My Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley stocks are going through the roof." Yeah, I mean, they're doing pretty well career-wise these days. They have like a pretty established niche at this point. Who else we got here? Oh, Aunt Emma Sasek, who, by the way, congratulations. She got engaged this past week. So everybody say...
I didn't know that. Congrats.
Yeah, she went, because she's like originally from Europe. So she and her now fiance went on like a European trip to like where she's from and stuff. And he proposed. About time. But she gave the film 4.5 stars. And I feel like, Will, you were about to be like, they went to Europe to go visit the set of Hamnet, or like where they shot Hamnet. And that's right. So she said, "So that absolutely wrecked me. Chloé Zhao finds a way to make sense of the most difficult experience a parent could go through and create such an overwhelming emotional journey to healing in the process. Jessie Buckley is just incredible in this film, giving you the whole emotional spectrum to chew on. And you can always count on Paul Mescal to move you in profound ways. This one is really so special." That might be the last of them. Yes, so that's the last one, ending on a high note for Hamnet. Was there anything else you want to bring up about the film before we play the Rotten Tomatoes game?
No, I feel like we're going long.
Yeah, that's true. We had a nice combo on that. Will Ashton, 231 reviews counted. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is? Here's a hint. I'm one of them.
Okay. I feel like it's probably high. Like I said, I think most people... I don't know. The Letterboxd reviews, I don't think are indicative of the average critic. I feel like most people are like, like me, like, yeah, tomato, sure, at the very least, if not higher. So I think it's like 94%.
It's a little bit lower. It's 86%.
Oh, okay.
Which I probably would... 93 is what the audience score is, but so,
okay.
You're closer to that. But yeah, I'm surprised. I probably would have guessed around the same as you. But I guess there are some folks who are taking one look at Hamnet and saying, like, don't go ham or you'll not net any proceeds.
I mean, the obvious joke I think would have been to be or not to be, and then say not to be, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Last Action Hero.
Oh,
Not to
okay.
be.
You saved that one. You
To
saved it.
be or not to be. Not to be.
All right.
Have you not seen The Last Action Hero?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Years ago.
Okay.
So our last film, or our last discussion point of the evening is Rental Family. And yeah, this film's been out for a while, and we're finally getting to it. It's, it's in the awards conversation, so I think it's worth getting to. It comes to us from Japanese filmmaker HIKARI, and it's called Rental Family. It's a quietly disarming and also gently kind of strange drama that, honestly, the concept almost sounds like satire at first, but the movie itself does kind of steadily reveal itself as something a little bit more serious, a little bit more like tender. It's kind of a warm-hearted film. It's set in contemporary Tokyo. It stars Brendan Fraser as Philip, who is an American actor who once came to Japan years ago for a commercial gig. Commercial being like an advertisement kind of commercial, but he somehow just never quite left. His work as an actor, his gigs, they dried up. The days started blurring together. Next thing you know, Philip finds himself kind of drifting professionally. He's kind of stalled and emotionally unmoored. But salvation for him starts to arrive in the form of a peculiar job offer, an employment at a, quote, rental family agency. So this is a real world thing that exists in the Japanese industry in which actors like Philip are hired to stand in as fathers, husbands, friends, whatever role a client needs in a given moment, even somebody pretending to have had an affair, with their husband and so on and so on.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I was just going to say, and I think I might have talked about this movie at one point on the show, but the reason I know about this is the Werner Herzog film, Family Romance LLC, which is obviously one of the smaller titles. I don't think most people are as familiar with it compared to some of those other ones, but I thought it was, an underrated little movie. It kind of captured the vibe and the like feeling of this kind of organization, the complexity emotionally of this in a way that I felt like it was very enjoyable and perhaps maybe colored how I ultimately felt about this movie, but I don't want to jump ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing with this movie is like it's kind of playing around with this idea of like, well, of course, Philip would be kind of a commodity, like pretty helpful for this agency because he's a white man. And Japan is a place that's not known for having a lot of white immigrants. There aren't a lot of white people living there. He does know the language, but like not super, super well. But it's like just enough like for him to be really, really useful as somebody who can kind of fill in and do these specific type of things where they need like a white man, like an older white man. And he's asked, in fact, to play a surrogate parent and companion and emotional placeholder for a bunch of different strangers. So the film starts to ask this uncomfortable question. If the feelings that emerge in this kind of work are genuine, does it matter that the relationship started as a transaction? The film is directed with a lot of restraint, a lot of warmth, a lot of stuff you've seen before. But I think the film is less about the novelty of its premise or the lack of, and it's more about loneliness. That's really what it's trying to do. It's doing a found family kind of thing, but in a kind of unique way. And it's also kind of tackling these like moral knots we tend to tie ourselves into when we're like pretending, to survive, like that kind of basic sort of thing. I really liked this movie. I didn't think it was a knockout. I didn't think it was a film that's going to stick with me forever, but I enjoyed it the whole way through. I actually, going into it, there's some of the marketing shows like Brendan Fraser with this like young kid who he pretends to be her father. And there's some interesting like material there. I actually think it was one of the weakest things about the movie. I think one of the best things about the movie is this relationship, this friendship he forms with this like aging actor. And partway through the film, I got to a point where I was like, this should be just the whole thing. Like, I felt like it was the most interesting part, or at least if, like the stuff with the kid could have been way more interesting if they had done a little bit more with it. But it ended up just kind of being like, oh yeah, I've seen this movie like 10 times. Like, I know what's going to happen, sure. But, I still enjoyed this one. I thought it was very nice, way better than The Whale. Such a better showcase for Fraser. I think he makes the movie. And I like a lot of the supporting performances in this too. I think it's just like pretty nice all the way around. I know some people are like kind of like, whatever, this movie, but I think it's a crowd pleaser in a good way. What do you think, Will Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was definitely nervous about it from the trailer. The trailer is way mawkish and like just, I don't know, it just feels very kind of saccharine and I don't know. I was just like, I don't know about this, but I was interested and intrigued because Brendan Fraser. I just feel like, who doesn't like Brendan Fraser? He's just such a affable, likable actor. It's been so refreshing and lovely to see, him, kind of find a second career, or like a second life to his career, I should say, with, his Oscar win and then these type of roles. I would say I think this is a better suited role for him than something like The Whale, which is a lot more, I don't know. I think both movies are benefited by the fact that Fraser is such a sincere performer. He's just like oozing this sort of like earnestness and tenderness as a performer that, like, it's very affable, it's very endearing to watch, and I think it kind of makes both films better than they probably should be given the material, because I feel like both movies, especially when it comes to The Whale and the screenplay, which I feel like has a sort of cynicism that I feel like really butts against any sort of emotional truth that the movie's going for. Fraser's performance really has this sort of tender sincerity that kind of elevates it. Maybe not all the way to a good film, but at least something that's better than it probably should be otherwise, along with Aronofsky's direction in that film. But like this film, I think it's fairly predictable. It's sort of cloying at times, and it doesn't really do anything you wouldn't expect, but it's entirely pleasant. I think it's, it's agreeable, and I think it benefits very nicely from the location, just the Tokyo, or sorry, not Tokyo, Japan location.
Well, Tokyo as well, but
yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. I didn't want to say exclusive, because I think they go to different. I mean, they go to different
at a certain
parts of
point,
Japan.
but most of the film takes place in Tokyo. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to, I guess it would be, I don't know. I thought maybe that would be overly, I don't know, overly, I don't know what the word I'm looking for exactly. It's getting late for me. But in any case, yeah, I mean, I think it's sweet. I don't feel like I liked it quite as much as you did, maybe, but
I mean,
like,
I'm a sucker for this kind of thing. Like, give me a feel good movie with an interesting enough premise, and I am a very forgiving critic. That's just kind of like where I come at this stuff. I was curious for you though, like what you thought if you had seen much of HIKARI's other works, because I think her big thing is Beef, is what is like her most like well-known thing, probably.
Yeah, I haven't watched Beef. I've heard it's good, or heard it's
I
mostly
didn't really
good.
like it. I had trouble getting through it, and I remember being confused why so many people liked it. But yeah.
Well, is this her first? No, I thought I saw on
No,
her Letterboxd that she's done a few.
She did 37 Seconds in 2019. She did, I think, some like short films as well. I'd have to look at her filmography, but yeah, she's done other things.
Okay, yeah, I'm not versed in her filmography. This is my first exposure to it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think she has an interesting voice. I just think like Beef, there are a bunch of reasons that didn't work for me. And it, it was one of those things it kind of grossed me out, honestly, at a certain point. But anyway, I'm curious because, people are talking about this as a showcase for Fraser. And, we're kind of purposely leaving out, like Killers of a Flower Moon, for example. Like, he didn't lead that film. He didn't lead No Sudden Move. So when we bring up like The Whale, it's like, okay, what are his leading films? Like where he's like being billed as the lead actor. And that's where my investment really comes in, because I like it when he's a lead. I think that he has really strong charisma. I think in this movie especially, there's a lot that's asked of him. So I think it's even better then that the movie ends up having such a nice supporting cast. And it's a supporting cast like where there aren't a lot, like at least for Americans, there aren't a lot of like recognizable actors. I mean, Fraser is like the only person most people around here are going to recognize, but there are a lot of Japanese actors here who are pretty well known. Takahiro Hira is like pretty well known, but also Akira Emoto, who plays Kakuo, is like, there's kind of like a meta thing going on with that entire storyline. I did mention that was the storyline that worked for me the most. This movie, though, has all kinds of different like rental family sort of pivots and all of that. What did you think of that take on it, though, of like the focus on the kid and then also like the other gigs he has? Like, was there anything that stuck out for you in that sort of thing, or do you just feel like it was all kind of like blah? It was all kind of blurring together.
I wouldn't go as far as to say blah. I mean, I think if anything, I felt like the like romantic angle was a little underserviced. Like, it kind of just came out of nowhere, and I don't really feel like it.
There was a romantic angle?
Well, sorta. There's like the woman that he's with, and then they like meet up.
I actually thought that was kind of nice because that was like kind of. I feel like it was played very cool, and it wasn't like this big melodramatic thing. It was just sort of. It kind of like normalizes. I guess we're not going to give it away, but it like normalizes that sort of thing and kind of adds some humanity to it that I thought was kind of interesting.
I mean, it wasn't like it was bad. Just kind of, I don't know. I just felt like it felt a little incomplete, I guess. Like, it just didn't really feel.
You just wanted to see if those crazy kids are going to end up together, huh? That's
not
all.
Even really. Like, I like the professional.
You wanted some kind of climax, Will Ashton. Oh, get it?
Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, just like, I don't know. It just kind of felt a little random at times. Just kind of just like, this is also happening. I'm like, okay.
Well, I think it's like trying to show us like different aspects of his life. And I like what it added to the movie myself, but I can kind of see what you're saying. Like maybe if a scene or like some kind of punctuation mark on like the point of that whole, thing. I guess so.
It felt like a studio executive was just like, this too sad. Give him a bra.
Well, that's my complaint about the end. I actually think the ending's too tidy. I think that it kind of, it's a have your cake and eat it too kind of ending that I didn't love. That's probably my biggest complaint.
I just kind of expect that type of ending from this.
I wasn't surprised, but yeah.
No, I just feel like, I don't know, this movie kind of feels like a callback to sort of films that Fox Searchlight made in the 2000s. Like, just like those. Yeah.
It reminds me of the ending of the trial Chicago 7, where the judge is like slamming the gavel, is like, order in this court, I'm the villain. Mm-hmm. and like there's like and then everyone clapped. Like, it's that kind of thing. Yeah. Friends of the show had some thoughts as well. Isaac Feldberg, you're not going to believe this, gave it 2 stars. No review. He couldn't rent the time.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick. I agree with you about Akira Emoto, because I didn't really get a chance to talk about that.
I thought you were. Yeah, I figured you were avoiding it.
No, I just wanted to say, because that's the actor. I mean, I'm not as well versed, but yeah, but I mean, like, I think he was in Shoplifters. He had a great part in that.
Yeah.
And then he was in Shin Godzilla, right? Not
Godzilla.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's just like you said, he's a legend, but also I just feel like he
was in another Godzilla too, by the way. Godzilla versus Space Godzilla back in the 90s.
Ooh. Okay, I don't know that one, but I'm always down for a new Godzilla, or a new to me Godzilla. If I haven't seen it, it's new to me. Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought this was a really lovely showcase for him, and I thought, it was just really nice to see him. I didn't mind the daughter stuff as much as you did, I guess. I thought it was a little pat, but it's still sweet. I feel like it still got me in a way that I feel like,
the kid does a good job.
I feel like I watched Hamnet, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm just made of stone. And then there's like a scene with Brendan Fraser and the kid here, and it was just like, oh, okay, well, okay. So I'm not entirely heartless like the Tin Man. I can be swept up in emotions sometimes. So I thought it was sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. So Corey Woodruff did not give any stars, but friend of the show, Corey Woodruff, said, lovely. The second film that Brendan Fraser has elevated from saccharine sentiment to genuine resonance, that just because he's in it and understands how to play the emotions so deeply. His ability to pierce through the veil and hit you right where it hurts is uncanny, man. He's a legend. You think Brendan Fraser is a legend?
I mean, that might be high, but like, I think, especially among millennials, there's just been this like desire to be like, let's see the guy pull through. He's George the Jungle. He's from
our
the
buddy.
Mummy.
He's our older. Yeah. He's our fun uncle.
He's Monkey Bones' frenemy. It's like we want to see him win it out in the end. And,
he's on Casino.
He's on Casino.
He's Uncino. So
Uncino.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never saw Sino Man, but
it's not the easiest joke to make, just based on the lettering. But yeah,
sure. I never saw Encino Man, but I heard it's pretty bad.
It's a fun time capsule.
Oh, okay. Are you saying that as a joke because like it's about a caveman?
You got me.
Okay.
For listeners who don't know, Encino Man, yes, is about a caveman brought to Encino in modern day, and it's hilarious. Aaron Dicer, friend of the show, gave it 3.5 stars, which I think is like pretty fitting. I'm like around like 3 to 3.5. He said, sentimental to a fault, but not without impact. There's probably more that could have been mined here, but even the more surface things it's doing hit home, thanks to some solid performances and the truth behind our need for community. And I agree. I want Community seasons 7, season 8, season 9, and then the movie. Why does it have to be 6 seasons in a movie? It could be 10.
Do you think the Community movie is actually happening?
Yeah.
There haven't been any updates on it in a while. You said no?
Yeah, I said yeah.
Oh, you said yeah. Okay.
It's gonna happen. Oh, we're good. It's coming. Well, believe.
I just feel like there haven't been any updates in a while.
Less than a year.
No, it's been longer than it's probably been a year and a half by this point, right?
No, Will Ashton. I'm not gonna look it up because we have to keep moving, but we'll talk about it. Clint Worthington is back, friend of the show. He gave it 2.5 stars. He said, I don't know, maybe it's the overbearing gentleness and pleasantness of it all. The treacly Johnsy score and Brendan Fraser's puppy dog eyes painted all over this thing. He does his level best. But this one didn't quite gel for me. There's some interesting meat on the bones here about the clash between Japanese and American cultural mores and the fake it till you make it approach to people's everyday lives. But HIKARI can't quite seem to thread the nuances of each approach. Okay. The culture clash between the Japanese and American stuff, I actually think is pretty weak in this. Like, I don't think it's really well captured. Like, I don't think it's bad, but it's far from the more interesting things I kind of like about it. I think, like, if anything, it sort of treats it as like an aside it's not that important to the movie, which I did kind of like that. But you could argue the movie could have been better if it made more of it. I don't know.
I actually think one of my favorite things about the movie is that they don't really do much of the fish out of water.
That's what I'm saying. He's been there for a while, and that right. I like that take.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of refreshing that, like, he's not completely fluid in Japanese, but he's like, he can hold his own, and it's like he can,
it's like
he's
realistic.
Been there for, yeah, I don't know. I just
he's
felt
been
like
there 7 years. Like, he knows the language, but he's not. Yeah, he's, like you say, he's not fluent. He's like proficient.
Yeah,
it's a like hard language to learn.
Yeah, it's like, he's not like, there's like a scene where he's like, how do you say arigato? There's like none of that stuff. It's just like,
it's not Rush Hour. You're right.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, yeah.
Rush Hour. Okay, Will Ashton. Rush Hour 2 takes place in Japan.
No. I'm saying that's a whole other can of worms because of the movie that got announced.
I thought you were going to say because Jackie Chan's Chinese, but okay.
Well, that too. But I mean,
yes.
I was going to say also because that's like, in what world would you have thought that a 4th Rush Hour movie would be a political tangent in the working because of real world events? But that's something that doesn't need to be discussed right now.
Agreed. What we can discuss is friend of the show, Matt Donato's review of Rental Family. He gave it 4 stars. Our buddy came through. He said, I've seen Rental Family be described as nice in the same derogatory context used for Coda. And I think that's doing both films a disservice. The complaint that, because something is nice and makes you feel good, maybe even shakes a tear loose, it's manipulative and doesn't deserve recognition over other films that are riskier to say. He says it's warm and at times coddling, but it's never cheap. HIKARI has plenty to say about false warmth and cowardly coddling, the jagged edge of toxic positivity. We as people are confrontation averse, convincing ourselves that anything is better than having to endure a challenging conversation. He wrote, gasp. That's why I did it. HIKARI keeps things light and smiley, yet the filmmaker's commentary on lies and loneliness carry a meaningful heft. I think it's interesting he brings up Coda. I haven't seen people saying that the movie is being manipulative, or I think it's more sort of people just being like, I've seen this movie. It's too familiar. I've seen this before. The emotions are a little telegraphed.
It's just a little predictable.
Sure.
I mean, it's just like, yeah.
A little treacly. But I don't feel like the movie's trying to manipulate me. I don't think the movie's trying to pull a fast one on me. I think it's just kind of, it's wearing its emotions on its sleeve, which you can respect as easily as you can kind of be whatever about.
Yeah,
meh.
I mean, as I was kind of talking about before, I think, I imagine like 95% of the people who watch Rental Family haven't seen Family Romance LLC. Maybe that number is actually even higher, but I just feel like knowing that film and the complexity and the like kind of more honesty that it brings, I feel like that kind of brings some starker relief, the sort of like, kind of heightened emotions that can be at play here. But I was definitely more nervous about how potentially treacly it's going to be. And I feel like it doesn't avoid those trappings entirely, but it could have been a lot more overly sentimental.
I almost skipped this one, but I got to read it. Alex Billington gave it 4 stars. and he said,
so he didn't like it was just an accident, and he didn't like Voice of Heimer job for reasons of it being like not realistic enough or something. But Rental Family, that's just yeah.
Listen, okay. So Alex gave it 4 stars. He said, "Well, this is just a magnificent film, really lovely. Yep, it got to me, especially with this really emotional John C. and Alex score." And then he says, "This has one of the most beautiful, wholesome mixes of both Japanese and English, all spoken in such a natural way that I have never really seen before in a movie. The way both languages are spoken back and forth, switching between them all the time, without any confusion, complaints, only mutual respect for communicating whatever language works, makes it such a special film." No, 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 no. That is one of the silly. We have read a lot of silly things from our friend Alex, whom we do not hate. We do not tease on this show out of meanness, but out of playfulness, right? But I find that very silly. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was gonna be worse the way you're teeing that up, but I don't know. I mean,
good. I subverted your expectation.
Sure, but yeah, it is kind of fun to be like, can you imagine if people were bilingual?
I wonder what he'd say if he watched some English. Anyway, okay. So Amanda the Jedi gave it 4 stars and a heart. And Amanda wrote, "Hey, this was really nice."
Sure. Yeah.
I agree.
True.
Yeah. And last we have, we have 2 more. We have Kristen Lopez, friend of the show, gave it 4 stars and said, "Director Hikari's Rental Family is a real unsung gem right now that I think more people are going to fall in love with when it debuts in November." She wrote this in September, by the way. I think because it was a Telluride or Toronto. So I know maybe it was Venice? Oh, you're shaking your head.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Brendan Fraser continuing to show us why he's such an underrated performer, plays a down-on-his-luck actor who gets an opportunity to be a stand-in for a little girl who doesn't know her father. What starts as pretending to be her father to get her into school ends up forcing Fraser's character to realize how much he needs people in his life. It's such a sweet little movie. Fraser is great, but it's also got wonderful performances from Takahiro Hira and Mari Yamamoto. Gosh, leaving out Akira, my goodness. But fair enough. That did get me kind of thinking, like, I do think it's interesting that a lot of Fraser's best movies are when they really find the right actor to play alongside him. I think one of the reasons I like this movie, again, because I really like how he plays off with Akira Emoto. But then, like, George of the Jungle, like him and Leslie Mann, or in The Mummy, like, legendary, right? Like, they're the power couple,
And who could forget Monkey Bone with Brendan Fraser and Monkey Bone?
Last one here is Auntie Emma Sasic, gave it 3.5 stars. And Emma wrote, "Rental Family is a very heartwarming and melancholic exploration of human connection, made all the better with a delightful cast and zany gig. What starts off as a wacky premise quickly shows how much impact it can make on people's lives, and it's really moving. Are there some overly sweet moments that'll give you a cavity? For sure. But HIKARI doesn't overdo it, and she chooses to keep story." I think she was writing this at the festival and was doing it quick, but we got this. "HIKARI doesn't overdo it, and she chooses to keep the story as grounded in reality as possible." Nailed it. And I really enjoyed Brendan Fraser's tender performance as well. "I love the way HIKARI captures Japan and its culture, such as its connection to nature, its very real mental health struggles and loneliness, and the ways in which mundane life can be so picturesque. It's a beautiful love letter to the country." I'm really glad we got to this one, because that is something I thought was more interesting to me, was like the frankness about Japanese life and like how people choose to use the service and like the loneliness. There's like a whole kind of like bit in this about a woman who has to like fake get married to Brendan Fraser because she can't really get married to her wife in front of her family. And the movie has like a bunch of different things along these lines of like shame and expectations and like, yeah, that culture clash that I actually thought was way more authentic than other things that are brought about in this film, to be honest. So yeah, I was a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, if an American filmmaker made this movie, or I guess I should just say if a white filmmaker made this movie, there would be, I guess, a kind of more voyeuristic quality to it. There'd be kind of more of like a gawking kind of thing. And that can work with like Lost in Translation.
We should say HIKARI is a Japanese filmmaker.
That's what I'm saying.
She's from Osaka. but I think you were hedging because you weren't sure if she was,
Well, I was building up to it, but
okay, my bad.
But yeah, I did double check to make sure. I wanted to be absolutely sure that she wasn't, American born. But yeah, I think it helps immensely to have a Japanese filmmaker kind of give this some more honest lens, I guess, in a way that doesn't feel like it's almost gawking at Japanese culture in a way that, it's supposed to emulate Fraser's perspective. Like we said, I like that Fraser has been integrated into the Japanese culture for a while. It's not him just like still trying to get his bearings and being like, you eat what? It's like stupid stuff like that. It's like, he's aware of Japanese culture. He's very respectful. He considers it his home. I think the stuff that elevates this from a weaker version of this.
Yeah. The movie would be a real chore otherwise, of like constantly having all those fish out of water. Like, how do I hold these chopsticks? Like, it just would have been annoying. But all right, let's finish up with the Rotten Tomatoes game. Well, actually,
No, I was just imagining, because I just watched The Whole Bloody Affair, like that scene from Volume 2, but with Brendan Fraser. You know what I'm talking about, where the bride's like trying to eat with the chopsticks and the trainer keeps like hitting her hand. It's like, do it again. But I was matching that with Brendan Fraser.
There you go. 145 reviews counted. Will Ashton, what's your guess on the Rotten Tomatoes score?
I feel like it's like high, but lower than Hamnet. Like, I don't feel like people are like across the board loving it, but I feel like most people are like, it's nice. So I'm going to say 82%.
It's not 82%.
Okay.
You're off by 5.
Is it, so what would that be? 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it 77?
It's 87.
Oh, 87. Okay. So this is higher than
it's higher than Hamnet.
Wow, okay.
Look at that. And it has a higher audience score, 96%. It's feel good.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, yeah, I like you said, it's feel good, yeah.
People are taking one look at Rental Family and being like, can we get it at the Rental Family video store?
Can we own the family?
Is it all in the family?
Yeah.
I would make it full circle. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to Cinemaholics. We don't know for sure what exactly we're going to be reviewing for our next episode. We have a few guesses. We'll probably talk about The Secret Agent if we can make that happen. I have seen Avatar Fire and Ash. You can find my review of that right now, actually, on inbetweendrafts.com. I'm not sure if he's planning to see Avatar before the holiday. Okay.
I will.
Okay. He gave me a look. He doesn't usually give me what he said. He's like, I am. Yeah. But then we had a few other films that were kind of on the docket as well that we'd like to get to at some point. Like, I'd still like to talk about Eternity if we can, but yeah,
I would love to talk about The Secret Agent, which I thought we were going to be discussing on this episode.
Okay, yes, I didn't have time to get to it before we recorded, but I did see Marty Supreme, which I know it's going to be a little bit before I think you can see that, but I'm excited for you to see that on the big screen because that's going to be something else.
I think it doesn't come out here until Christmas Eve, so I probably won't be able to see it until after Christmas, but it's a priority.
Yeah, it'd be a great. Yeah, if we could get that in before the new year, that'd be really cool. Another one in our radar is this thing on, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see it before the new year to include it in my Pittsburgh Film Critic ballad.
There you go.
So, yeah, I got a lot of movies to watch.
I was thinking maybe seeing Ella McKay. I'm kind of tempted. I mean,
I want to
see a James Brooks movie that the critics hate. Please.
I mean, honestly, like, regardless of the quality of the film, this may very well be the last time that Disney funds an octogenarian's original romantic comedy. Like, I mean,
you could be right.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of feels like it could be the last wave of a certain type of film by a certain type.
I guess what you're saying is this could be as good as it gets.
I hope so. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's the case from the reviews, but
well,
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, we talked about Gracie Films, I guess, at the beginning of the episode. I just like, I don't know. I don't want to take these older filmmakers for granted anymore.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. And I'm poking fun, of course. And for listeners who are, again, a little bit younger, As Good as It Gets is a movie directed by James L. Brooks. Okay. Well, on that note where I explain the joke instead of trusting my audience, we'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for listening to Cinemaholics. We'll be back soon, hopefully. From the Internet, California, I'm Johnny Brony.
As good as it gets. More like as great as it gets.
The Will Ashton story. See you next time.